Good evening. Will this Labour government allow what many people regard as a radical Islamic preacher to come to the UK in the coming days? Dr. Shadee Elmasry is due to be doing speaking events in Birmingham, Bolton and Ilford on the 4th, 5th and 6th of January. Now, he described the October 7th massacre by Hamas, saying the people of Gaza finally punched back. You can see his full tweet on the screen there. He also seems to indicate that Hamas, of course a banned terrorist organisation in the UK, has a morality to their resistance. So what does that mean? Does that mean that Hamas are morally good? He also appears to have made quite a bizarre claim, we assume, again, he's talking about Hamas here, and how they tried not to hurt any civilians.
And one person from H group was blamed to say, okay, but you killed some innocent people in this thing. And the answer to that is, well, the way he answered it, at least, he said that we tried not to, right? We tried not to, but it happened. And it may happen. But you also, why are you telling us this? Because they do the same thing and have been doing the same thing from 1948.
Do we need to remind ourselves about the actions of Hamas on October the 7th especially? What you're looking at there is the aftermath of that devastating attack that they did on the music festival in Israel. I mean, just look at that. So there's the argument there that they tried not to hurt any civilians. I mean, isn't that literally the opposite of what happened? But he also seems to deny that Hamas treated the hostages terribly. I mean, look, we all know that Hamas raped hostages, they starved them, they killed them, etc. But I mean, here is the man who could be doing a speaking tour of the UK next week.
Danielle and Amelia's letter. Supposedly, it's written here there is a Hebrew letter written. Of course, nobody knows what's true and what's false these days. I would like to think it's true, but then again, there are many ways to argue against this. Say that it was written in duress, what have you. What do you believe about the letter? And for those of you who aren't aware of it, two hostages, Danielle and Amelia. Danielle is a mom and Amelia is the daughter. And they supposedly wrote a letter to Hamas before they left. And it's in Hebrew, and it's dated November the 23rd. And it says, to the generals who accompanied me in the past few weeks, it seems we will part ways tomorrow. I sincerely thank you from the depths of my heart for your extraordinary humanity shown towards my daughter, Amelia. You've treated her like parents, inviting her to your rooms, making her feel that you're not just friends, but true caring loved ones. Thank you for the countless hours you spent as caregivers. Thanks for being patient with her, indulging her in sweets and fruits, and providing everything even when it wasn't readily available.
Pretty grim, I think, that, to be honest with you. He also says something that will come as a hammer blow for all of those people, saying that we should allow Gazan refugees into Britain because they're not responsible for what Hamas did. They don't really like Hamas. He claims he's never seen a Palestinian condemning what Hamas did.
Let's ask a simple question. Show me a Palestinian who says that we should have not done anything to Israel. Show me one person in Gaza who has lost or hasn't lost, or they all have lost to everything. Homes, relatives. Show me one who is against what's happening here and who blames Hamas for what his enemies have done. When Allah Ta'ala tells us, لِيَغِيظَ بِهِمُ الْكُفَّارِ, to antagonize your enemy. Why did Allah say to antagonize your enemy? Because when they're antagonized, they don't behave properly.
Right, well, there you go. I mean, he seems to defend what appears to be the execution of what he regards as bad Muslims or apostates.
It's quality control. We need quality control in our ummah. Such people are very dangerous, right? They know the ins and outs of Islam, and they could now start pulling people. They're malignant, right? What is the benign apostate? The apostate who keeps his apostasy to himself. We don't know it. He doesn't announce it. So he's benign. So we don't know it. So we can't punish him.
He also talks about slavery under Sharia law.
I asked my Sheikh Mahmoud Shabib, what would be the conditions in which slavery, criminals of war, or prisoners of war, slavery, concubinage would ever come back to the world. He said, when the kuffar bring it back. This was not something that the world was neutral and Islam introduced it to the world. It already existed in the world. It was the way of the world. And the Sharia then gave it some rules. Okay? Trimmed it as always. Gave it some rules, tamed it. It's not something that the Sharia came down, oh, humanity, look the beautiful thing that we gave you now. Slavery and prisoners of war and concubines. It's not how it was. It was already in the world, and the Sharia came with rules for it.
And just to round things off, he's also posted about how homosexuality could be punishable by death. Meanwhile, there is ongoing controversy, of course, about a man who posted anti-Semitic, racist, extremist content online from Egypt being allowed into Britain. The current Labour government, who supported his release, won't deport him. OK? They will not deport him. That is, of course, Al Fatah, who's been all over the news recently. Well, today, now, they might be about to let that guy in, the preacher that we've just been speaking about, so he can spread his views around the UK. I mean, Shabana Mahmood just needs to stop him coming to Britain, surely. But will she? That's the question. Will she stop him coming and preaching in Birmingham and Bolton and Ilford? And I ask you, whose side are this government on? Now, in the last hour, we went to the Home Office. Well, we went to the Home Office ages ago. We've heard from them in the last hour because we said to them, are you going to stop this guy? Are you going to block him from coming? And they have said, there is no place in the UK for foreign nationals who spread hate or push extremist ideas. Anyone intent on stirring hatred or dividing our communities will not be granted a visa. Well, the clock's ticking, I'm afraid, because I think he's due in Bolton on the 5th, I think. So, yeah, better get your skates on, Shabana Mahmood.
A VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Anyway, let's get the thoughts of my panel. GB News contributor Will Kingston, political commentator Andy Twelves, and the other GB News contributor Connie Shaw. Right, Will, so should the Home Office block this guy from coming to Britain?
Yeah, of course they should. That was a really helpful addition from the Home Office there.
Yeah.
Look, I can, Connie works for the Free Speech Union. I'm a near free speech absolutist. So let's just preemptively knock down any whines from the left that, oh, shouldn't you guys be supporting free speech? This has nothing to do with free speech, because the classical view of free speech is you get dangerous ideas out in the public, you then debate them, and the truth emerges through that debate. There's going to be no intent for any debate or discussion when this guy arrives. I notice at least one of the 3 events is invitation only. The other 2 events will no doubt be from people who thoroughly support him. This isn't a Charlie Kirk type figure who's going to go out into the open, discuss, hear the other point of view and then debate. This is going to be an exercise, I would imagine, I'm not alleging, but it is very possible, an exercise in radicalisation.
Right.
Now, that is not a free speech issue. That is a completely separate kettle of fish. And as a result of that, this guy shouldn't be allowed anywhere near this country.
Just the same question to you, really, Connie. Do you think the Home Office should make a point out of this, especially in light of course, the recent events, which has been all over the news with El Fattah and his sister as well? You know, should they make a statement here and block this guy?
Absolutely. How can Keir Starmer claim that he's fighting against anti-Semitism, yet still allow someone like this to come? And as I was going to say as well, one of these events is invitation only. It'd be good to know who he's inviting to this event. I think those people should be being watched, frankly. And also the fact, the other 2 aren't invited, but who is choosing to go to these events? I think there should be investigations into who's choosing to go to these events. This argument about, we were saying earlier how the free speech argument, countries should have the right to choose he's allowed to say those things, just not here. If America want to allow him to say those things, fine. He's not a British citizen. We're allowed to keep him outside of the country. I mean, it was the Premier of New South Wales very recent who literally said we cannot have free speech because we need to uphold multiculturalism. And this is the issue. If we continue tolerating intolerant people, what's going to happen is that the intolerant people are going to get rid of all of the tolerance, and then we'll just be left with intolerance. So we cannot continue allowing this. And unfortunately, again, it's a difficult free speech issue, but we cannot allow these ideas to continue being festered. We have to at some point, protect ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know if we might be able to bring up... So it was the first lot of tweets that he had, the ones about Hamas there, really, where he appeared to indicate that they were basically morally justified, I think, for some of the things. Just quickly, sorry. Can we bring them up? Is that all right? Yeah. So he's basically said, so let me just make sure we get these. So he said, look at the shock of the people in Gaza finally punched back. He said, there's a morality of their resistance there. But
can I ask a question on this? And Connie, would your answer change if he was coming to do, say, a public debate with Douglas Murray, who would take the opposing view?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think it would.
Yeah. And I think my view would change as well. I think part of this is that I think the intent is to radicalise. It is not to actually debate and come to some deeper truth.
All right. Well, let's put that to you directly. So the big claim there is that, and in Will's view, that this is an attempt at radicalisation. So firstly, do you agree with that? Secondly, Hamas is a banned terrorist organisation in this country. If he is sympathetic towards them, should that not block him just on its own, do you think?
So on the first point, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not an Islamic fundamentalist, so I wasn't familiar with this gentleman before this evening's show. I mean, from the clips that you've shown and the tweets that you've shown, he certainly seems like a wrong 'un. Obviously, I haven't watched beyond that, but he certainly seems like he's not here to do any particular good for anyone. I think on the second point, wrong, and I think he probably shouldn't be given a visa, and by the sounds of it, the Home Office don't either. I think they have a policy on not commenting on specific cases, as you could imagine. But I'm sure that if Shabana Mahmood saw that, she wouldn't be too pleased. And if I can't imagine it's a policy of the Labour government to let in nutters. To be honest.
I mean, it's well, you'd have thought so, but alas. But we are in a situation where we are now, 5-6 days away from his first talk. And
I mean, has he been granted a visa? Do we have confirmation of that?
We don't.
Because I could knock up a Canva graphic saying I'm going to Texas to go and talk about trade unionism. I don't have an American visa. Do you know what I mean? Has he been granted a visa?
Just for a bit of context on that. So, and we're going to actually hear from there is a charity group that is organising this. Right, and we've got a statement from them which we'll come to on that. So the charity group is organising it, so they are also advertising it. And it is also seen as a fundraising event. So it would be pretty weird if you're advertising something and then you're going to cancel it in with 5 days' notice. But this is the latest in quite a long line of what many people would regard as radical Islamic preachers who have attempted to come to Britain. And it was earlier this year that actually, through the work that Charlie Peters did, and we also did something on this show, we got the Home Office to ban a bloke who, believe it or not, did actually say much worse stuff than that guy. We got them to ban him and block him. But the problem for me is the amount of people who want to go and see them.
Yeah.
They queue up. They want to go and see them. And that points to a bigger problem in Britain for me, I think.
Yeah, it does. So you can have, say, Islamic lobbies or their PR spin doctors who will say the right things in the wake of atrocities like Bondi or Manchester, for example. But that doesn't change the fact that the substrata, or maybe a better way of saying it, there are still a lot of radical preachers in mosques across this country that are saying behind the closed doors of the mosque radical and anti-Western things, despite the fact that the PR coming out may sound more tolerable. That's a real concern, and I fear they are the types of people who would be running those mosques in those areas, who would be going to these events basically to get their next script.
I don't think there's any other aspects of society, Connie, where we would be so hands-off when it comes to this kind of stuff. You know, if people thought that, you know, I was hosting far-right rallies around at my house, or I was having all these people coming around and inviting people around, the police would be all over it like a rash. Whereas I think there are big problems when it comes to what is being said in mosques quite generally. And we know this from the Daily Mail did a fantastic expose of several different mosques in the wake of the October 7th attacks, where people are being taught all sorts of stuff. I mean, some of it is like quite comical, like, oh, if you listen to music, then you're going to become gay, and you're going to end up with a rainbow hair. I mean, you just think, like, what kind of absolute nutter was... So there's that, but there is obviously very dangerous stuff as well. And you see preachers like this guy coming, I just think, why are we so standoffish when it comes to going round and saying, actually, we are going to have a look at what's being said in these places?
We're not just standoffish, Patrick. We are, this government in particular, but as a state, we have protected extremists. We now have blasphemy laws coming through the front door, not just the back door. Obviously, Hamit Koskin, the Turkish asylum seeker who burnt the copy of the Quran outside the Turkish consulate in protest, he was originally convicted under a Public Order Act, and the Free Speech Union appealed and won his case. The CPS now want to try and prosecute him again to try and overturn that. That is literally through the front door. Obviously, we have the Islamophobia definition that the government is still trying to come up with. They've tried to keep that extremely secret. And obviously, one of the most recent, the most recent case of this sort of safeguarding dossier that we have at the FSU of a teacher who was sacked by a secular school because a parent complained about him for saying to teaching Muslim students about religious tolerance. That it was a primary school where children, girls who weren't wearing hijabs or head coverings were being mocked, and other students who weren't fasting as the same as the others were being teased. Like, we are actively protecting Islam as an ideology.
Just final words to you on this. We mentioned the Islamophobia definition there. I mean, look, in a nutshell, the clock is ticking for Shabana Mahmood. We would hope, I think most people watching this, and as it turns out, everyone on this panel actually, is of the view that this guy probably shouldn't come to Britain, and that is within the purview of this government. So we do hope that the Labour government announces in the coming days that this guy is not coming to Britain. I think it would be a massive oversight if they let him. But as Connie was saying there, is this exact story the reason why we should not have this updated Islamophobia definition? Because my concern would be that basically this conversation that we've just had now, me highlighting to the nation that I think that a pretty radical guy is about to set foot in Britain, do a tour of Britain, spread his stuff all over the country. I don't think I'd be allowed to do this if we had an Islamophobia definition like the one that we...
So I think you would. It's been changed from Islamophobia to anti-Muslim hatred, which I think is a more appropriate term. I think there is worth in words. I think, in anti-Semitism we have an internationally accepted definition. It was adopted by the Labour Party when Keir Starmer became leader. I think we should have, an accepted international or national definition of anti-Muslim hatred or anti-Buddhist, because I think it defines it extremely well. I think it defines it defines it legally. Why would we? Why do we need? It's constantly changing.
Absolutely skyrocketed far beyond what Islamophobia has.
Well, I haven't seen these. I don't think we should be really comparing. Oh well, it's worse anti-Semitism and worse Islamophobia. I think both of them are bad, and we should have.
Of course, we already have the definition.
But if we've got the definition, if we've got a definition, we've got a clear legal definition.
It's not a legal definition.
It will be. It will be accepted by the government and
no,
used
it won't.
legally.
The whole
It will.
point of the
It will.
Islamophobia definition is the fact that it's non-statutory. That's why we're wondering.
But it will be an
what is the
accepted
point of
definition. It will be an
this?
accepted definition.
But it's not
we should have
legally
it.
binding,
We
so
should have
what's
it.
the point of
Neither is the International Holocaust Charity's definition of anti-Semitism.
I know,
but it's
so
still
what's the point of
extremely, it's
it?
extremely useful.
Just very, very finally, sorry, because I know we're going to move on. I need to read a couple of statements out here, as you would imagine. But Will, just quickly on something. One of the standout lines for me in that was him, proud as punch, bold as brass there, saying he's not seen a single Palestinian who's condemned the actions of Hamas. And I just thought that was a bit of a downer, really, for a lot of people who've been calling for Gazan refugees to come to Britain because they're as oppressed as everybody else.
Yeah, well, that's a mask slipping moment, isn't it, Patrick? And the fact of the matter is that there's been this narrative in Gaza that you have Hamas as the evil guys at the top and then the oppressed Palestinians underneath. And the uncomfortable truth no one wants to actually come to grips with is that the majority of Palestinian people are on the same ideological path that Hamas are on. That's the reality.
All right. Well, there we go. Now, look, we have contacted Dr. Shadee Elmasry directly. We are awaiting a response. Now, we also contacted the Global Relief Fund, which is that charity that I mentioned earlier, which appears to be all organising this tour, really, as far as we can tell. They are obviously named on that poster that we showed you earlier on. Now, they said, we have conducted checks on the speaker and reviewed social media content. We wish to emphasise that any past comments or views expressed are those of the individual and are not associated with the charity. That being said, this is interesting. The speaker is highly respected throughout the Islamic world, and that includes with the majority of Muslims in the UK. The speaker's participation is solely in support of a humanitarian event focused on faith-based talks and helping vulnerable communities. Matters unrelated to this purpose are not connected with the event or the charity. So that's what they've had to say about it. Just quickly as well, we mentioned Alaa Abdel Fattah there, and again, he said about his tweets, looking at those tweets now, the ones that were not completely twisted out of their meaning, I do understand how shocking and hurtful they are, and for that, I unequivocally apologise. But look, like I've said again, the clock is very much ticking. We've highlighted it now, we've brought it into the public sphere. This guy, as far as we can tell, is on his way to Britain in the coming days. Will this Labour government do anything to stop him or not?